The darkness of space stretched endlessly, swallowing starlight into silence. Around Kepler 442, that silence was broken by movement, hundreds of biomechanical warships gliding in formation. To the Zafrans, it was not conquest, not aggression, but routine. This was what empires did: they consumed, assimilated, ruled. Admiral Vexer stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Voidpiercer. He was proud, and in that pride, utterly certain. His fleet, more than 2 centuries strong in conquest, moved with precision that seemed more biological instinct than trained discipline. From a distance, the armada resembled a swarm of living metal, each hull fused with organic sinew, each vessel a predator born from centuries of bioengineering. Today, another world awaited subjugation. A world glowing blue and green, a fragile jewel drifting in the void. Its mineral wealth had already been charted, its orbit mapped, its defenses, or rather, its lack of defenses, confirmed. The third planet of this system had no fleets, no orbital weapons, no signs of advanced civilizations. Only primitive settlements of what intelligence reported as pre-industrial life. To Vexer, it would be the easiest conquest of his career. "Admiral, the fleet holds perfect formation," reported his second officer, tentacles shifting against the luminescent panels of his biosuit. 217 vessels operational and ready for planetary descent. Vexer's tendrils twitched with satisfaction. Each ship represented decades of conquest and refinement. The smallest carried 1,000 warriors. His own flagship, nearly 10,000. They had broken empires with fleets half this size. To the admiral, the conquest was not in question. Only the method of occupation remained. But beyond the edge of that formation, invisible to their eyes, something stirred. Far from the Zafran swarm, the UNS Defiance drifted in the dark. The human destroyer was not large compared to the alien warships, nor bristling with planetary weaponry. What made her dangerous lay in the silence, the experimental stealth systems wrapping her in a field that bent her very presence. To most sensors, the destroyer did not exist. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan sat at his console, watching shadows ripple across his tactical display. His fingers moved with the unthinking rhythm of long habit, adjusting filters, refining scans. He had been a naval officer for nearly a decade, but nothing in his career had prepared him for this. "Captain," he said, voice tight with the effort of control, "you need to see this." Captain Lisa Morgan crossed the bridge, her boots striking softly against steel. She was young for command, but her record had already carved a reputation of precision under pressure. Defiance was her first ship, her first crew, and they trusted her absolutely. "What do we have, Jake?" she asked, leaning toward the sensor readout. "Zafran Grand Fleet. I count, over 200 vessels. Standard occupation formation, heading straight for the inhabited planet." Lisa felt her stomach tighten. The world below was not primitive, as Zafran reports claimed. It was home to nearly 50,000 human colonists who had arrived just 5 years ago. Families. Farmers. Schools. Children who had never seen warships except in textbooks. The colony had no defenses. A few security teams with rifles. Nothing more. "Range?" Lisa asked, voice calm though her mind raced. 47,000 kilometers. Closing fast. They haven't spotted us yet, but at this distance, it's only a matter of time. Standard protocol was clear: retreat, report, regroup. Headquarters was 3 weeks away at maximum jump speed. Reinforcements would never arrive in time. By then, the colonists would be enslaved, or dead. Jake spoke again, more quietly now. "Captain. Their fleet composition matches records from the Vega incident." The words hung like a shadow across the bridge. Everyone knew Vega. 20 years ago, a Zafran fleet had wiped out an entire mining colony, 30,000 civilians, executed or fed into biofactories. The name Vega still haunted naval training halls, a grim reminder of what happened when humanity arrived too late. Lisa's jaw tightened. She would not let Kepler 442 become another Vega. On the Void Piercer, alarms broke the hum of routine. Sensor operators scrambled over their panels, frills trembling with confusion. "Report," Vexor demanded, voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Admiral, we've detected a vessel. Bearing 27, Mark 5. Its energy signature, unusual." Vexor moved toward the displays. At first glance, the readings made no sense. Small craft. Metallic construction. Propulsion unknown. Unlike anything in Zafran databases. Classification, he pressed. The operator hesitated, tentacles stiffening. The system cannot identify, but the closest match is human. The word silenced the bridge. Even through layers of genetic memory and imperial arrogance, a shiver moved through the crew. Humans. The word was not supposed to be spoken aloud. Humanity was the ghost in every Zafran archive, the nightmare in every military doctrine. "Impossible," Vexor said. Yet his voice trembled. "Run it again." "I have, Admiral. 17 times. Hull configuration, energy output, quantum signature. Every profile matches." The operator lowered his voice to a whisper. "It is a human warship." Across the armada, the reaction was immediate. Panic rippled through crews who had never known defeat. Warriors who had crushed empires now trembled at the shadow of a single vessel. They remembered the stories told to them as children, of how humans had once broken the Zafran Empire in its prime. Of fleets shattered, worlds abandoned, and treaties signed in fear. On the Defiance, Lisa and her crew watched the alien formation fracture. 1,000 warships, bristling with weapons, and yet they pulled back, defensive. Terrified. Jake stared at his console. "Captain, they're afraid of us." Lisa saw it too. Perfect Zafran discipline breaking apart at the sight of one small destroyer. The legends humanity told its children, of Commander Rick Hayes and the Battle of New Texas, were not just human stories. They were Zafran nightmares. "Amy," Lisa called to her chief engineer. The woman's voice came back strained. "Stealth field's unstable, Captain. I can hold it for an hour, maybe less. After that, we'll light up every sensor in the system." Lisa made her choice. If fear could move an armada, then fear could be wielded. "All hands," she said, her voice steady and clear, "we're going to remind them why humanity was never forgotten." The Defiance turned toward the center of the Zafran fleet, a lone shadow cutting into the heart of an empire's pride. The Defiance slipped forward, her form little more than a shadow stitched into starlight. Around her, the Zafran fleet shifted uneasily, formations breaking apart like glass under pressure. It was not the power of the destroyer that unsettled them, it was the name behind it. Humanity. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Morgan kept her eyes on the displays, but in her mind, another name burned brighter. A name she had grown up hearing whispered by veterans, etched into academy lectures, wrapped in both pride and fear. Commander Rick Hayes. Jake, her tactical officer, said what every human in the galaxy knew. They remember him. Lisa gave the faintest nod. They always will. 2 centuries earlier, humanity had not been a great power. Scattered colonies. A modest fleet. Technology lagging behind the galactic empires. And yet, at the Battle of New Texas, Commander Hayes had done what no one believed possible. The Zafran Grand Fleet had come in overwhelming force. 50 ships against Hayes' lone prototype cruiser, the Valor. Every admiral in the galaxy expected the outcome to be quick, brutal, and final. Humanity would be crushed before it ever learned to walk among the stars. But Hayes did not fight with numbers. He fought with imagination. Through maneuvers that defied prediction, through daring jumps into gravity wells no sane commander would attempt, through tricks of signal and stealth, he made the Zafrans believe they faced not one ship, but an entire hidden armada. Panic spread. 50 ships retreated from one. From that moment, the galaxy learned a lesson that never faded: humans do not fight wars with strength. They fight wars with terror. Hayes vanished in the chaos that followed, his ship lost to the void. But his legend endured. In Zafran military academies, his name became a curse, a warning etched into every doctrine: if you see one human vessel, assume there are more. If you face them in battle, assume you are already outmaneuvered. For 200 years, no human fleet had challenged them openly. But the nightmare never left. Now, as Lisa Morgan guided the Defiance into the heart of the enemy swarm, she felt the weight of that inheritance pressing against her chest. Her chief engineer's voice cut across the silence. "Captain, stealth field is holding, barely. Another 40 minutes, maybe less." "Plenty of time," Lisa said, though her hands gripped the armrests tightly. "Plenty of time for what?" Jake muttered, watching hundreds of Zafran icons scatter across his screen. "There are 200 ships out there." Lisa's gaze was steady. "And not one of them wants to be the first to test us." It was true. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the Zafrans did not advance. They shifted and circled, desperate to contain the shadow that moved among them. Their voices, though Lisa could not hear them, were filled with the old terror of Hayes' legend. On the Void Piercer, Admiral Vexer's composure cracked. His tentacles writhed against the deck as reports poured in. "Admiral, half the fleet is pulling back. Units 37 through 62 request immediate withdrawal. Crew morale collapsing across multiple squadrons." "Sir, they believe," the officer hesitated. "They believe it is him." "Fools!" Vexer thundered. "Hayes is dead. That ghost belongs to history." Yet even as he shouted, a whisper crawled at the back of his mind. Could it be? Could humans have preserved what should have been lost? Another officer spoke more quietly. "Admiral, whether or not it is him does not matter. They believe it is. And belief kills fleets as swiftly as weapons." Vexer stared out into the void. One small destroyer, and yet his armada crumbled like ash. If he pressed forward and was wrong, he would be the admiral remembered for losing the Empire to a single ship. Back on the Defiance, Lisa saw the hesitation and knew it was her weapon. Fear was not just present, it was amplifying itself, multiplying like a contagion. She leaned closer to Jake. "Patch into their calm frequencies. Just a short burst. Audio only." He looked at her sharply. "You're going to speak to them?" She smiled faintly. "Not me." The message they sent was simple. A fragment of an ancient recording, taken from Academy archives. A voice, calm and steady, filled the Zafran channels. Commander Rick Hayes. His last transmission before vanishing at New Texas. "To those who believe themselves untouchable, know this: one ship is enough to end you. One human is enough to end you. We don't need fleets. We don't need armies. We need only the will to remind you that you should never have come." The silence that followed was absolute. On the Void Piercer, crews trembled. Some wept. Others powered down weapons entirely. The ghost had returned, and with him, the certainty of defeat. Lisa sat back in her chair, heartbeat steady despite the enormity of what she had just unleashed. She knew the Zafrans would never admit it openly, but the war was already being lost in their minds. Jake's voice came softly. "Captain, we just made them see ghosts." "No," she corrected, her eyes never leaving the fractured enemy formation. "We reminded them they never stopped seeing them." For the first time in centuries, the Zafran Grand Fleet faltered not before an armada, but before a single vessel cloaked in shadow. Humanity had no fleets here, no reinforcements on the way. Yet the fear was real, and it spread like wildfire. The choice now stood before Admiral Vexer: retreat and preserve what little remained of his pride, or advance and risk being remembered as the man who proved the legends true. The galaxy watched through whispers, through distant sensors, through trembling reports. Somewhere, in quiet corners of alien empires, rulers asked themselves a single question. If one ship can do this, what will happen when humanity truly returns? The Zaffron Grand Fleet hung motionless, a storm frozen mid-breath. Hundreds of ships, each built to dominate battlefields, now drifted with the hesitation of prey sensing a predator it could not see. On the Void Piercer, Admiral Vexor clenched the railing until his limbs trembled. The voice still echoed in his mind, "One ship is enough to end you." Hayes' ghost. A phantom from 2 centuries ago, yet somehow alive again, carried into this battle like a curse. "Admiral," one of his officers whispered, "orders." He did not answer. To advance was to gamble with legend. To retreat was to stain the Empire with shame. Either choice could end him. At last he hissed through clenched fangs. "All ships, hold formation. We wait." But waiting only deepened the terror. On the Defiance, Captain Lisa Morgan watched the stalemate with clinical calm. Every second that passed without a shot fired was a victory. Humanity did not need to destroy this fleet. It only needed to remind the galaxy why the Zaffrons feared them. Her communications officer broke the silence. "Captain, encrypted signals across multiple enemy channels. Not directed at us, at each other. They're arguing." Lisa allowed herself a thin smile. "Good. Let them." This was what Hayes had understood so long ago: wars are not truly won on battlefields, but in the minds of those who believe they have already lost. Vexor's fleet dissolved faster than even he anticipated. Captains whispered mutiny. Entire squadrons cut engines, refusing to advance. Some demanded retreat, others screamed of Hayes reborn, and a few begged forgiveness from gods long silent. His second-in-command approached, eyes wide with quiet horror. "Admiral, discipline is collapsing. If you order engagement, they won't follow. If you hold position, they will desert. Sir, the Empire will remember this not as your command, but as your failure." Vexor turned slowly toward him. For the first time in his long career, he felt the weight of inevitability. Not from the human destroyer lurking in the dark, but from the fear that consumed his own fleet. The Empire had not been beaten by weapons. It had been beaten by memory. Lisa leaned forward in her chair, her voice calm but steady. "Broadcast wideband, all channels." Jake frowned. "What do we send?" "Nothing elaborate. Just silence." He stared at her, confused, but obeyed. The Defiance broadcast its signal openly, yet no words, no threats, no challenges. Only the stark weight of presence. Across the Zaffron fleet, crews heard it, the proof that the human destroyer was there, unafraid, waiting. Silence became the weapon. Silence filled the void like thunder. One by one, ships began to turn away. Small units first, then larger squadrons. Desertion disguised as tactical repositioning. Within minutes, the once mighty Grand Fleet was unraveling into fragments. On the Void Piercer, Vexor saw the collapse unfold and knew the truth he could never speak aloud. His empire had already lost. He whispered to himself, a vow half prayer, half curse. This is not the end. The humans will rise, yes, but when they do, the galaxy will not face them alone. We will make certain of it. With that, he gave the only order left to salvage what pride remained. Retreat. Full withdrawal. Now. The words burned his tongue like poison. But they carried across the fleet, and the Zaffron war machine fled from a single human ship. Lisa Morgan watched their icons vanish into the darkness. No cheer rose from her crew, no triumph shouted. The silence remained, heavy and reverent. She stood, her voice carrying quietly across the bridge. Log it in the records, one ship. One stand. Let the galaxy remember. Jake exhaled slowly. Captain, we didn't fire a shot. That, Lisa said, is the point. News traveled faster than light. Not through official channels, not through propaganda, but through rumor, whispered across starports, encoded into smugglers' tales, passed between frightened diplomats. The Zaffron Grand Fleet fled from a single human destroyer. Some dismissed it as myth. Others swore it was true. And in the shadows of alien courts, rulers began to ask themselves the question they had long buried. What happens when humanity stops hiding? In the quiet hours after the battle, Lisa walked the Defiance's corridors alone. She thought of Hayes, his daring, his defiance, his ghost still haunting the galaxy. She thought of Earth, scarred but patient, waiting for the moment to step fully into the stars again. Humanity had not yet returned with fleets or armies. But it had returned in spirit. And sometimes, spirit was enough to move empires. Lisa paused at a viewport, watching the stars scatter like cold embers. She spoke softly, a promise to herself, to Hayes, to all who would come after. We are not finished. Not yet. This was only the beginning. Far away, in hidden systems and forgotten archives, other powers stirred. The Harari, neutral observers, whispered warnings of something greater moving beyond the edges of known space. The architects, silent, patient, watching. The galaxy thought the fear belonged only to the Zaffrons. But fear has a way of spreading, and soon, every empire would feel its weight. For the first time in 500,000 years, the galaxy remembered why humanity had once been feared. And for the first time, it wondered. When humanity rises again, will anything be able to stop them?